Did anyone watch the Pope on Friday night? Wasn't that wonderful? He was actually on an ABC news, like in place of 2020. It was the Pope and the People. And he was in the Vatican, and they had live feeds to different Catholic churches in impoverished areas and immigrant areas. And, I just love that man. I mean, he was so connected and so loving, and people, these wonderful souls were able to actually ask a question, and and he was able to see them, and the connection and the answers he gave were so sincere and so loving and so hopeful. And it was just a beautiful experience. I hope that they'll either replay it, or maybe we can go online and see it again.
There's something on in 60 Minutes tonight about the Pope.
Okay. Well, cool. I'll be there. Well, he's an awesome dude, and he's so just, you can just feel his heart. And I know he's shaken up his some of the people in the Catholic Church, because he's preaching a message that's pretty strong, but it's really one of love. And I do, one thing that he had mentioned the other night, which was relevant to the meditation, is that we are our brother's keeper. We sort of, I think, get caught up in the idea that, it's really all about me and my healing, and as I heal, then, I'll be able to see the world differently. And there is a great level of truth in that, because all healing is self-healing, in my belief. But on the other hand, I believe as we become more awake, more enlightened, we don't join in the suffering. We don't necessarily judge it, but we become more aware of how we can be of greater service to the world. And I think that we are truly our brother's keeper. And it starts at a small level, maybe just with your closest relationships, your family, your spiritual family, and then your work family. Those are the obvious big lessons coming at you. But on the other hand, we've got the the lessons that come from our brothers and sisters in Syria. For the time being, there's I don't know if you've been watching this on the news, but these people are fleeing the country by the tens and hundreds of thousands, and their desperation is, whoa, it's powerful. And it's about, I believe we have to really ask ourselves, how can I be of service here? It's so beautiful to see countries. I just read this morning, it doesn't matter. Countries are opening up their borders and welcoming these people with food and water and shelter. And this is also a hot button within our own country, about opening our country up to be of greater service and to support each other. And I'm not here to proclaim an answer to this, because I don't have one. And I'm not here to make someone's thoughts about this wrong or right. But, I think we have to go into our hearts and understand this great awakening that we're moving towards is exempting no one and welcoming everyone. So I believe, as the Course in Miracles says, that last step from illusion to truth, from hell to heaven, is holding our brother's hand, and no one's exempt. So we can start locally and act globally as well. But really pay attention. I'm seeing this as a great opportunity for us to see how we can really walk our talk and step out there in a bigger, greater way. Lots of great changes are happening on the planet. And these things, I think, are necessary. But on the other hand, I think it's important for us to step into our role and see where we fit in. Well, I just wanted to start with that, but that really wasn't even what my talk is intended to be today. There's, as many of you all know, I think you're all familiar with Wayne Dyer. And I was surprised to hear that he passed away this week unexpectedly in his sleep. It was just like, wow, you know, all of a sudden Facebook, you know, there it is, rest in peace. And I thought, you know, there's always like rest in peace James Earl Jones or whatever, you know, and so, you know, you see these all the time. So at first I thought, oh, somebody's doing something silly again. But then I realized that it wasn't, you know, something that it was true. And then that got me to reflect back on my experiences with Wayne Dyer. And I'm sure all of you guys have been touched by his life, or most of you. Everyone knows who Wayne Dyer is, yes? Anyone who doesn't? Well, you see, he was, you know, really one of the leading edge people who came out with, he actually was had a PhD in psychology, Dr. Dyer, but then he turned into a more spiritual perspective with his teachings and his studies. And interestingly enough, he had spoken about when he went to, you know, he had best-selling books and they were all more about psychology. And then when he went to the publisher and said, well, I want to lean more spiritually, they said, no, you'll never sell any books. You'll, you know, well, and that's a great lesson in itself, because he just said, thank you for sharing, and went on and did it anyway, and followed his truth. But I do have a Wayne Dyer, I could have a few, but I'll share one that was just, every time I think of Wayne Dyer, I think of this one instance. And Wayne, up until a few years ago, lived in Boca Raton, Florida. I think he had 8 or 9 children, lived down there in South Florida, and did a lot of seminars, teaching, and things in that area. So he was a regular at Unity in the Palm Beaches. And that's where I was very involved in Florida. And he came one Sunday, and the church was kind enough to give at that time I had the Palm Beach Center for Living. Well, they gave our group, the 2 front rows, 40 seats. They just said, we'd like to honor you guys and have you sit here, which was very kind. So here we are, front and center. It's a huge, you know, congregation. There's about 700 seats in that venue. And all of a sudden, Wayne is talking about following that inner guidance, you know, follow your heart song no matter what anyone tells you. Even if people poo-poo it, do it anyway. And so all of a sudden, as we're sitting there, being very grateful for our, you know, front 2 rows of seats and enjoying Wayne's talk, I hear a little voice in the back of the church come walking down. Wayne, I'd love to offer my gift to the world. I have a song to sing. Well, I looked at the person next to me, and Ellen, and I'm sweating. I'm like, please, God, no, no, no. And turn it off. And I'm shaking, and I'm like, not now, please, please. But sure enough, she followed her heart, and she gets her guitar and starts strumming down the aisle. And she's singing the song, I See the Love of God in You. And as she gets closer to us, I'm shaking more and sweating more, and I can't even tell you what I was feeling, and I think all of us were feeling the same. It was one of our music ministers. And yeah. And you know, here we are being treated very wonderfully that day. And so anyway, she gets up to the front 2 rows and she's strumming, and she goes, come on, Palm Beach Center for Living, get up and sing. And I'm like, no, no. And I'm looking at her going, no. And she's just like, come on, because now I think she's embarrassed, and she's like, come on, you gotta save me here. So somehow, some way, we got up and joined her on the stage, and you know, just totally disrupted his whole talk. And I was not happy to be there. And we got up and we sang, and I can tell you we didn't get any applause. And I can tell you that there weren't many smiling faces either. So that, to me, and including one not smiling face, was Wayne Dyer. So, but on the other hand, he did put it out there. He made the request, right? And so be careful what you ask for. You just may get it. But, you know, it was just a funny day, and every time I think of Wayne Dyer, I think of that experience. And, you know, I'm sure that gave him an opportunity to reflect later on in the day, even though he felt blindsided at the moment. But I do want to honor him in a big way today, because he was one of my first teachers, and he was just so right on, and there were so many things that he said that stuck in my mind and still is there today that have been helpful to me on my journey. And just a few, principles that he talks about in living, an enlightened life, really living our best life. What are we here to do? And of course, number one in these steps that he talks about is being independent of the good opinion of others. In other words, what other people think of me is none of my business. And it's so, when you think about how much energy we give trying to please people and make people like us, it's not the goal. That's not really what it's about. It's what other people think of me is none of my business. What I think of me is everything. And you know what? The more we love ourselves and offer ourselves that gift of self-love, then we can let things slide off a little easier. Life isn't so dependent on external circumstances and conditions and other people's opinions. So we have to really be willing at some level to accept the disapproval of others. And that's been I don't know about you guys, but that's been a really big lesson in my life. And I can tell you now, it's one that I wish I would have learned a long time ago, because I've had a lot of pain and suffering really trying to convince other people of where I was coming from. It doesn't matter. Just live your life fully. Ellen and I went down to see an Anne Kinky Boots yesterday. Great story. We're going to show the movie in here on movie night. It's a fantastic true story. And the story about this is, I was telling Ellen last night, now I've got this Wayne Dyer talk, how am I going to weave Kinky Boots into it? But it had such a great message. And the message basically was about a shoe factory. It's a true story in England, and they made beautiful, perfectly crafted shoes, which had become obsolete. They had basically gone to, the discount shoe, as we all, or some of us may do. Now it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go buy a pair of shoes for $20 instead of the crafted ones for $150. Some of us make that choice, which puts a lot of these companies out of business. Well, obviously, the third generation father of the young man dies, and his son is left to take this over. And the business was just failing like crazy. Well, he ends up seeing a fight, and these men beating up on a woman who actually wasn't a woman but appeared to be a woman, a transsexual. And he goes to save her. Well, he pulls these guys off, and then he finds out the truth of who this woman is. And sure enough, they develop a wonderful relationship, a beautiful friendship. And here comes the Kinky Boots, because these beautiful transsexual beings were wearing these substandard shoes which couldn't support the weight, 200 pounds of a man, and they were doing their shows and their acting with these boots on. Well, guess what? Kinky Boots factory, this factory became a factory that made kinky boots, and the quality and the beauty of these boots was amazing. Well, the whole message, it was obviously a big big shock to the workers in the factory when they said, "What do you mean we're doing?" And all of a sudden, the employees turned against them. But it gets back to this point. This young man was willing to accept the disapproval of others, and because his heart was telling him that there was something bigger here at play. And sure enough, the end was far better than you could ever expect. As you can imagine, yes, the company thrived and came back, but the dance scene at the end was so much fun, and the music, and it was beautiful. And of course, you got the tears coming down your eyes, tears of joy. And one thing I really loved about this is Greenville's a fairly conservative area. And this was a fairly radical production. And at the end, they made a plea for support for HIV causes. And they said for $10 you can enter a raffle, and for $1,000 you can buy your own kinky boots. And if you want to have your picture made with these beautiful transsexual beings, then it's $10. And all these conservative, beautiful people were in line, hundreds, in line having their pictures made. And I was like, it was so healing. It was so wonderful. And I think that play, that life, that whole production was so healing. It brought so much understanding. And when you see something that appears radical that can bridge that gap, it's truly, that's why I was so moved. I'm like, look at all these people that would probably in no other way be open to honor these people, and now here they are paying $10 to have their picture made with them. So it's very cool. And so, backing up just a little bit, Wayne talks a lot about detaching from outcome. And it really, to me, again, as you know or may not know, I became a life coach several years ago. And it's all about defining your goal, focusing on your goal, feeding your goal, all this stuff, vision boards, blah, 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 all good things, and they all work, and they're all wonderful, and I learned a lot, because as I said, when I was going through this process, that this was actually at a time when I was in real estate, and I did not like it. That's the only time in my life that I was doing something for work that I just didn't care for and I knew wasn't a fit. So the coaching actually got me very clear on what I wanted to do. So in that, it served a great holy purpose. But on the other hand, I think that we can get so fixed and focused on external needs and things we think we want when we really don't know what we want. And Wayne says, many of us are seduced into believing that having goals is necessary for a successful life, especially since we've been brainwashed by slogans such as, if you don't know where you're going, how will you know when you're there? And not having a goal is more to be feared than not reaching a goal. This kind of logic keeps us from feeling inspired because we feel we're living a life of striving while foregoing arriving. And I can only speak for myself, but my goal now is really to know God, to live God's will, to be in joy, and there's nothing in this world that really interests me anymore. There's really not. It's fun. I mean, and this is a great creation, but it's just letting things unfold on their own, not forcing, not pushing, not striving for anything. It's just, I want to know God's will for me, and I want to see the face of Christ in everybody. And that's about it. And yes, I get angry and upset, and sometimes I think I need something I don't need. And then I realize, okay, don't need that. That doesn't work. So just come back to that place of knowing God. And Wayne goes on to say that Yoga Master Sri Swami Sivananda offered the only worthwhile goal I know when he said the goal of life is God realization. Now here's a goal I can live with. After all, this allows me to live in spirit every moment of my life, while simultaneously thinking ahead to the next God-realized moment, and the next. And the great Indian sage Maharishi once remarked, there is no goal to be reached. There's nothing to be attained. You are the self, you exist always, and now is the real inspiration. And I think we get to a point where it's like, doesn't that just feel good? There's nothing we need to do. Just be. Be in that total place of love. Life will be revealed. Life will definitely unfold way better than we could ever imagine. And it doesn't mean necessarily that you sit under a coconut tree and read poetry all day, even though that may be what you're led to do. Sounds pretty good to me right now, by the way. It's about surrender, letting go, being of service, being in love in all we do. And it just, as Wayne Dyer, I think, with his death, he says, don't die wondering what might have been. I've heard this quote that you don't hear many people on their deathbed saying, I wish I'd spent more time in the office. It's just, really, it's if we have an inspiration, to be inspired is to be in the Spirit. If you're inspired, follow that, open up to it, surrender to God, ask for guidance, and then we'll be led. But, think about it. At the end of your days, what's really important? It's the love given and the love received. It's that circle of love. It's that spiritual connection with all beings and not seeking externally outside of ourselves. And of course, he says we can't we don't always get what we want when we want it. So God's schedule may be different than our schedule. But I guarantee if every moment we stay in that place of peace and just clean up what's in front of me, then it will unfold in perfect time. And if I'm really being fascinated and intrigued lately about how perfect and divine everything truly is. And when I can look back, and what's really intrigued me lately is think of any person in this room, whether you've known them just briefly or you have a deepened relationship with them. Even if it's just a brief encounter, that's changed your life. That's affected your life in some way. Every encounter has affected us. And take one person out of your life, be it a significant person or someone who maybe you've just known a little while, and you take them out, and your whole life could have been different. There's no mistake in God's plan. And every person is here for a holy purpose. And when you begin seeing every person in that light, it changes the whole game. It really, really does. And you can have full appreciation for everyone. Had I not met Ellen 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, my life would be, I'd still be playing golf probably. And what a nightmare. And, but you just never know. And that, pay attention. Spirit is presenting us with all kinds of blessings every moment of every day. And one of Wayne's quotes is, we're much more successful when we allow inspiration to flow in God's terms rather than when we're impatient and demanding. So go with the flow. Let Spirit be your guide. Open up. Be led. We're much more successful then. That's the new earth. That's the new world that we're creating. The old paradigm is being whisked away. And in the midst of all this, we're here to hold that space for healing and awakening and to be of greater service in this situation, whatever it looks like. And it may mean just making a phone call, reaching out. What can I do? We can all do something. Well, in closing, there were 6 steps in this story. Charlie was the owner of the factory, and it wasn't a chocolate factory. Charlie was owner of the factory, and then Lola was actually the inspiration of Kinky Boots. And so they ended up finding, as I said, a friendship. And as Lola said, and of course Lola, what a great name, Lola. And we have a dog, Lola, and had an aunt, Lola. And anyway, love that name. And whatever Lola wants, Lola gets. And that's for sure. But she talks about the 6-step program to personal freedom and self-expression. And number 1 is pursue the truth. 2, learn something new. Accept yourself and others too. Let your love shine and let pride be your guide. And the last thing that she says, which is really the whole basis of the play, the production, you can change the world when you change your mind. And I felt that yesterday hugely. I felt the world change. I felt the shift. Didn't you guys? It was so powerful, really powerful. And we're doing that every time we choose love, every time we accept a situation that maybe we weren't willing to accept in the past. Now, I didn't I'm closing with this, and I know you all missed my joke in the beginning, but this is a little ditty at the end for you. And I'm going to close with this. As far as the sixth step, change the world by changing our mind. And it may start by this. Let the gays get married. Let the rednecks have their guns. Let the atheists be atheists and the Christians be Christians. We're about freedom. Freedom to live our life how we please. So go smoke a bowl, eat a greasy burger, shoot your guns, praise Jesus, and wish those two fellas next door a happy honeymoon. And so it is. Namaste.